Hello everyone. Today I am going to try and explain the two scientific ideas or theories of gravity and why different scientists believe in one or the other. Let's start with Albert Einstein's theory. His theory is called the bent space and time theory and is from his book, The General Theory of Relativity. You do not need to know anything about the general theory of relativity, and I will be explaining the basics about the bent space and time theory. So to basically sum up the bent space and time theory of gravity, it says that any object with mass, or a solid form with weight, will actually bend space and time, although we will be focusing on the bent, or the space part of it, not so much the time. This bend in space will actually cause another object to move towards the first object. I will use an example to help explain this a little bit easier. Let's say you have a bowling ball, or another heavy object will work as well. That's a little big. So let's say you have a bowling ball or heavy object and you place it on a mat or a cushion, like a couch cushion, will work just fine as well. The bowling ball, as you can see, will bend the mat or the cushion, whichever one you're using. Now let's take this a little further and say that you place a marble on the outer edge of the cushion, well away from the bowling ball. It doesn't move, does it? No. But let's say that we move the marble closer to the bowling ball. Now what happens? The marble will start to move and keep going faster and faster until it hits the bowling ball. This is a perfect example of how the bent space and time theory of gravity works. I will say that if Einstein's theory is correct, then gravity is not defined as a force. It's merely a consequence of the bend in space caused by the object or mass. I will also say that scientists have discovered evidence in favor of Einstein's theory. And finally, this theory allows for the Earth to be relatively young. In fact, it kind of needs the Earth to be young. The other theory I would like to discuss is slightly more complicated, at least in my opinion. It says that gravity is a force caused by the exchange of tiny particles called gravitons. You don't need to know anything about these gravitons, just that they're passed between two objects. Let's say these two objects are really far apart, and these gravitons still have to make the trip. The trip is really long, and the gravitons must make the trip in a very short amount of time. This means that less gravitons will go, and that would mean that the amount of gravity caused by the amount of gravitons is much less. Now let's say that the objects are really close together. That way, the gravitons can make the trip much easier in the same amount of time, which means that the two objects can pass more gravitons between each other, which will result in more gravitational force. In this theory, gravity is described as a force. Also, this theory allows for the universe to be extremely old. Despite the evidence in favor of the bent space and time theory, most scientists actually believe, or want to believe, in the graviton theory. You might think this is crazy, but in their minds it makes complete sense. They want the Earth to be millions of years old, so they will always go for the theory that allows the Earth to be millions of years old. I personally think that Einstein's theory of bent space and time is not only simpler, but it also makes more sense, and it has evidence going for it. This being said, I am interested to see what you guys think and which theory you think is more accurate. So please comment below with which one and why. And also feel free to tell me ways I could improve my speech. Thank you for listening.